Good afternoon, sociology students. We're continuing our brief spiel on socialization with chapter 6, which is social interaction in everyday life. So let's jump right into it. Members of every society rely on social structure to make sense of everyday situations. People build their everyday lives using the idea of status. And status is a social position that a person holds. Status helps us to define our relationships to others because before we can deal with anyone, we need to know who the person is. And George Simmel said that he is probably my favorite theorist, and that is absolutely true and very simple. Before we can deal with people generally in a social setting, we need to know who the person is. Each of us hold many statuses at once. Your status set is all of the statuses a person holds at a given time, and they change over time from ascribed to achieved. Now, an ascribed status is a social position a person takes at birth. For example, when I was born, I was a daughter and I was a sister because I had an older sister. Those were not statuses that I had to do anything to get. Those were statuses that I had at birth, okay? Then as you grow older and you start doing things, you go from ascribed to achieved status, which is a social position a person takes on voluntarily that reflects personal ability and effort. So I have down here, for example, like a nurse, a forensic scientist, an analyst, and makeup artist. Now, these are things that you have achieved over time. So now my achieved status set is that I am an educator, I am a mother, I am a fiance. Those are things that I achieved over time. Those are not things that I was born with. And all of us have them. So, take a moment and think about what your ascribed status is and what are your achieved statuses. What's your status set, okay? Because we hold many statuses at once, we play a mixture of roles. And roles is behavior expected of someone who holds a particular status. So, for example, as a mother, I have a role that I have to play. I have to take care of my children. I have to be nurturing. I have to insert discipline. I have to give structure to my kids. That's some of the roles that I play as a mother, okay? With so many roles, sometimes they conflict a little bit. Role conflict is conflict among the roles connected to two or more statuses. So, for example, not only am I a mother, but I'm also an educator. And as a mother, I have two sons, and one of them is into sports. And there have been times where I have missed baseball games, I've missed basketball games because of my status as an educator, meaning that I had to be at school, doing work, after school, PTO, or even teaching this class. So sometimes my roles do conflict. Now, role strain is tension among the roles connected to a single status. For example, as a mother, I have a young college student who may be some of you guys' age, and it is very hard navigating being a mom with a young adult. For any parents who may be taking this class, you know that as a parent, you feel like you know what's best for your child, and when they get old enough to make their own decisions, the relationship changes just a little bit. So I struggle between being my child's mom and now being her friend now that she is a young adult. Okay, so we're going to go right on over to Erving Goffman's presentation of self, which was a part of your lab this week with Mirror Mirror. Erving Goffman was a theorist who believed that people live their lives much like actors performing on a stage, and this was called dramaturgical analysis, which is the study of social interaction in terms of a theatrical perspective. Okay, so just like if you are a thespian, or even if not, you know a little bit about theater. Of course, you have a part, you have a script, you have things that you have to do. And much is the same with dramaturgical analysis. The status Think of your status set is the part that you play. Okay, so your status as a daughter, your status as a son, a brother, a sister, that's the part in the play. The role is the script. So how you behave is the script. Okay, and the performance is a person's efforts to create a specific impression in the minds of others. So for example, as a fiance, and I use this down here, I assume the role of a friendly future wife. That's the behavior that I want to have. That's my role. Therefore, when I perform, when I'm around his family, I always interact because I want them to see me as warm and inviting. So think about some of the parts that you play in society every day. Let's get that off of there. Okay. Goffman also suggested that along with our performances, we tend to idealize our intentions. In other words, we try to convince others and ourselves that what we do reflects cultural standards and not selfish motives when we're playing these parts, okay? For example, as the status of a fiance, I interact with his family even when I don't want to. One must be careful because these actions could lead to embarrassment or tact. So when you're playing these roles and you're idealizing and you kind of want to give off this idea, one must be extremely careful because you may be embarrassed. So for example, during this time when I'm playing this role, him telling his family that despite my friendly and attentive demeanor, that I am really quite antisocial is a bit embarrassing. And yes, this actually happened. He busts me out in front of his family. He's not a nice guy sometimes. But then you also have tact, which is saving face. Of course, once you get embarrassed, that's kind of what you want to do. In my case, his niece was the one that came through in the clutch and saved me. He said, as an example, his niece laughed at him and exclaimed, "You're just mad because she likes us more than she likes you." And on that particular day, I kind of did because, he made me mad when he embarrassed me. So you have to be careful when you are performing with these roles. Even though it may be a defense mechanism, you're using it to protect a certain part of yourself. Just always make sure that, when you're playing these roles, according to Goffman, that you are authentic or you attempt to be authentic. Consequently, Goffman's research shows that although behavior can be spontaneous in some respects, it is more patterned than we would like to think. Depending on who we socialize with and who we interact with, sometimes does determine that script, or in other words, that behavior. All the world's a stage. William Shakespeare did say that, and that is kind of true because we all do put on a certain performance for the world or for society, and a lot of times it's a lot different when we are alone or to ourselves, okay? Finally, there are 3 elements that help us to manage social interaction. Emotion is one of them. Of course, it's easy to kind of gauge people a lot of times based on the emotions. That can be happy, sad, excited. There's a range of things. There's also language, how we talk to people, using harsh language, using calming language, funny language, sad language, is yet another way to help us manage social interaction. And then, of course, humor. Humor is very important, especially in times like these. You just have to laugh and share that with people and hope that it's reciprocated, okay? So that concludes Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is a very brief, simple chapter. The most important thing that you need to know in this chapter is, of course, about your dramaturgical analysis. You will see that again. And also about the status sets ascribed and achieved. Okay? Have a good evening. Thanks.